Hi there, everyone. Welcome back again. I'm going to give you another video explaining what I want you all to do for the fallacy hunt this week, but I also understand we're just coming off a midterm season. There's a lot going on, and I actually think that it would not be responsible of me as your instructor to present to you all of these fallacies one by one, to regurgitate the information to you for a fourth time after you've engaged with all these resources. There are great examples in all these texts, and I would love to answer your questions. I'm really interested in, are you able to apply these things, especially because there's disagreement in my field as well as really generally around all sorts of disciplines that are making arguments about what kind of things really are fallacious and what kind of things are responsible. And that's not a conversation I think needs to happen for you on the discipline level yet. I would rather you as an individual sit and think about these fallacies and try and analyze yourself whether or not arguments that depend on some of these are truly strong. Because remember, I said strongness is in some ways subjective. There are things that a lot of us, as people with graduate level degrees who write papers and make arguments and teach professionally, we might all have majority opinions about what kind of arguments are inappropriate to make. And there is still facts about whether or not they're logically enough to prove with absolute certainty whether or not your argument is true. But we don't live in a world of absolute certainty. We live in a world of experience and things that are sometimes subjective. And I just think with all this debate, the best thing for me is to turn towards enabling you with all of the resources to make independent decisions, to analyze things yourself. And I also really want you to continue to make some of your own arguments and have more opportunities to compose some of your own work. A lot of you identified as that being something you care about. And this can be a tool for you to think about how you respond to poor reasoning. So this week you guys have to do the fallacy hunt. And this is going to be either really hard or really easy. What I want you to do is I want you to return to your discussion board post from last week. Return to your argument from last week. And remember, last week I had you create an argument and then think about your definition. So you had to tell me how you were defining your words in that argument. And then you saw your peers were disputing your definitions. Super cool. And I want you to take from your argument the greater topic. Okay, so I gave you the example of euthanasia and the instructions for that assignment, right? So I said, here's my argument for euthanasia. I'm defining euthanasia in this way. I am defining killing in this way. I'm defining murder in this way, or whatever. And I gave you all that opportunity to see my example. My argument were my premises and my conclusion. My topic was euthanasia generally. So if I, for example, wanted to write a research paper on my argument, when I'm searching for sources, I wouldn't search euthanasia is the intentional killing of a human life. I would search euthanasia, and then I would look through a list of all of the things that came up on my Google search or what so have you. That topic, I want you to isolate and separate it. What makes this a hunt is I want you to find an example of someone using a fallacy in their argument, addressing the same topic you discussed last week. Okay? I understand these instructions might seem a little confusing, so I'm going to review them. First, you go back to your post last week, discussion number 5. You identify your argument that you made in your post. Isolate the topic that your post was about and go to the internet and find a TikTok, an Instagram reel, a YouTube short. I'll take a news article. I will take a YouTube video. I will take a Reddit thread post. I will take a comment on something. I'll take anything. A smart idea might be find someone who made this argument on social media, look at their comments and see if anyone's committing fallacies in the comments of these sections, right? That's a place I see fallacies all the time as an individual. Find an example of someone using a fallacy as their argument in the same topic you discussed last week. Out in the real world, find an example. If you truly, truly, truly cannot find an example, reach out to me. I will try to help you find an example. And if really no one is discussing the argument you made, then I will sort of give you a make-believe fallacy. And that's something me and you can do. I'm hoping you're able, though, to find these out in the real world. After you find the example, identify the fallacy that your example is committed. So if I was doing my topic from last week, my topic was euthanasia, and I found a TikTok of a philosopher saying, I believe that euthanasia should be legal. And I found a comment under that TikTok that said, people who believe euthanasia should be legal are all murderers. I would screenshot that comment. I would include that in my post for this week for the fallacy hunt. And I would identify that as an ad hominem fallacy. If you don't remember what fallacies were options for you this week, you can return to the poster, you can return to those videos. You can also look in our textbook. There are a few additional supplemental examples of fallacies given there as well. But I need you to identify the fallacy from the example you found. This is all your post, right? So I need your argument from last week. I need you to tell me which topic your argument was discussing. I need you to find me an example of another person using a fallacy in that same topic. And I need you to identify the fallacy they made. This all is part of the post, okay? For your response, should be pretty simple. I need you to just analyze your peer's argument. So that was the thing that I discussed last week. That was the thing that the student says that should ideally be well reasoned. And I want you to pretend almost that this example they found is a person who, in response to their argument, gave them a fallacious argument or an argument using a fallacy. And I want you to analyze if those two people were having a conversation. Your peer, another student in the class, gave you this crisp argument. They defined their terms in a nice way. And then their opponent gave this argument that was a fallacy. Think about how you, as a third-party observer, would take in that information. Which one is more convincing to you? Do you think that the stronger argument is the argument that was presented by your peer? Do you maybe think that the person who used a fallacy is actually right, but the reasoning of the student is actually better? That would be interesting, right? I want you to think about those things in your response. If you have any questions about this process, feel free to reach out to me. I think this is super cool though, because you are still generating your own arguments, but you're also now going to the real world and thinking about how people respond to your arguments. And in your response, you're thinking about when people use fallacies, what that looks like, how that feels flattening, how it feels weaker logically. So I think that's super cool. Of course, I'm a resource too if you have questions this week. I understand some of you might have chosen niche topics or maybe topics in your personal life or arguments that you experience. That's fine. We'll find you examples. We will work it out. But I am hoping you're able to find opportunities in the real world and that this is going to be a assignment you have fun doing.